G'day punters, welcome to episode 8 of the Punters Academy. Apologies first of all, it's been a bit of a while since we filmed the last episode. John was in Sydney for the 2-year-old trials, and that sort of leads us into our first question today. But notwithstanding that, he also had a couple of other commitments. I was also away for 5 days last week and early this week on a bit of a break and a freshen up, getting ready for the punishing spring. John, and there's
no stop from now on. I'm trying to look at this weekend with you thinking, what is it, tonight, tomorrow, Sunday, Monday. It just never stops with Metro meetings. So
it doesn't.
And it doesn't stop for about the next.
Doesn't stop for a few months.
No, pretty much.
And even into the Ascot Carnival too in Perth. There's also things to think about there. So we'll start off with questions. One from Dave here. Hi Paul, wondering if yourself or John could give us a bit of a rundown on your key pointers for 2-year-old first starters, i.e. key positives, hidden positives, signalling will be strong first start, etc. Gym crack, obviously the theme for this. John, that's a very timely question.
Yeah.
You want to have a crack at this?
Well, it was important to me to get down there for the trials themselves. They're probably the main set of trials I want to go to every year, just to have a good first look at the horses themselves and how much development they are, just how far along they are, what they've sort of look like they've got left in the tank, and then obviously the trials themselves and what they do in the trials is important as well. But really important and a good edge usually to get down there and have a good look at them. It's not me that looks at them mainly, I have a quick look myself, but the guy that I use a lot who's very good at it. And so for me, a type's very important at this time of year because it's just a pole of opposites between how developed some are and some aren't, and you can see that some are just in there having a look around because and they're going to tip them out and have a crack probably post Christmas, and then there's ones that are highly developed and ready to go now. The trials themselves looking for just horses probably that do things really quickly, whether they've got good speed or whether they have got to show a bit of acceleration. They sort of tend to overdo everything 2-year-olds, so just professionals that have got a couple of key positives, which are probably speed and if not a bit of acceleration, are probably the two main things in these short course races, like the gym crack, the breeders. So that's pretty much sort of what I look for, particularly just really not you don't want to read too much into these races. They're basically won by the professional with a few key things. You're not looking for huge improvement in them, I don't think. You want them to be going to that 2-year-old trial and trying to repeat that, and that's good enough. You don't want to have to see them doing something extra special that you're predicting in your mind they can do. You just what you see is what you get with the horses this time of year.
And some of these 2-year-olds, John, historically speaking, we've seen some pretty smart ones come out of these early 2-year-old races.
Bloody oath, yeah. Especially for 2-year-old. It's we're talking 3 and longer, not, but it's really relevant for the 2-year-old campaigns that they're up and running, because even if they're not as developed now, it brings them on so much come Christmas and then post Christmas and into the autumn carnivals and the bigger races. It's just a really good foundation for them. So these horses are really good to keep an eye on, even if you're not betting on them for the big races coming up.
The market, from a data point of view, the market often gets these 2-year-old races at post time, pretty right.
Yeah, at post time, absolutely.
At post time, and the SPs going forward are more significant, or in my opinion, take on more significance in these early 2-year-old races than they do for, say, other horses.
Yes, absolutely, and that's right, because you get a lot more, whether it be outside influences on the market. They're pretty vulnerable, compared to a normal market with exposed form. So it's pretty much shaped around stable opinion and that sort of thing. So if you can have see the vision after the races and everything kind of backs up, it's a pretty solid guide, that's for sure, that a horse with a short SP, and this has shown good ability.
Yeah. Okay, Jay, thanks for that one. That was pretty timely. Next one is sort of multi-pronged. It's from Michael. Hi, Paul and John. A quick question. I love the Punters Academy, and thanks for all your efforts to help us amateur punters. Well, Michael, that's what we're trying to do. It certainly takes up a bit of our time, and there's a bit of effort that goes into the preparation for each show, so we're glad that you appreciate it, and thank you to everybody for the feedback that we've had today too. It's been excellent. Just wondering, for people like myself who have a decent crack at doing form and trying to make $1 from the punt, but who doesn't actually have the time to watch many replays outside from the major Saturday races, is it enough to trust the RaceNet coded summaries of track bias and pace impacts from provincial and country races? They place these 3-word summaries on races like BGI, best going inside, OPF, on pace favoured, TF, track fair, etc. I suspect that that's too simplistic and potentially misleading, but I don't know what the alternatives are other than going through the videos myself. I remember seeing a race or two from Dubbo on a Sunday meeting a few months ago when they were obviously scraping the outside rail despite the track being rated a good track. Think that maybe just a best ground wide attached to this races would not have adequately described the total quicksand on the rail that day. Okay, so we'll deal with that one. Then there's another question for John. Personally, I can't comment too much on the RaceNet bias comments. I've looked at a few. I haven't agreed with them, or they haven't, if you like, they've conflicted with what I've had. So from that point of view, I wouldn't trust them. It all depends on how much time you've got up your sleeve. If you don't have enough time to watch the tapes and you're not armed with proper data and sectionals and so forth, I think you're going to struggle to sort of take on that role of trying to assess bias yourself. I think it's problematical. Look, I review all the meetings and I know how much time it takes, and John certainly does New South Wales meetings, and it does take time. I've got the benefit of having obviously more accurate data and also people helping me achieve that via confirmation of what the bias might look like at a meeting from a individual private source, third party. So look, whatever you do, you've got to be capable of repeating it, and you've got to be capable of doing it consistently. You know, if you haven't got the time to do that, then I don't really know, or I can't really find a suggestion.
I find the two things that are really personal are biases and speed maps. And if you find someone who's providing them to you that you can trust, best thing in the world, because you don't have to go through all the work. But if you want to have complete confidence in it, it's very hard to get away with not doing it yourself.
Not doing the work, putting the effort in. So
because,
if you can't do it, Michael, then the only thing I can maybe suggest is ignore it. Don't try to factor it in. I mean,
well, that's it. Yeah, I wouldn't be. Yeah, exactly. And like, even if they say best going inside, how do they know where how do you know where that horse was without doing the tape as well? So even if they're giving you the help of one thing, how does it so it's hard. It's just a sort of, if say you might be doing the bias for RaceNet, I might be doing the replays that give the comments on where the horse is, so now I've got to trust you and I.
And next week it could be someone else. Different doing it. We don't really know what the experience is,
and that's not a go at RaceNet. Exactly.
That's just
they're trying and that's with everyone. A lot of best bets. Everyone. I think any of those. Anyone providing a feedback on bias has to be able to do it consistently. Has to be able to do it for all meetings. Has to be able to obviously replicate the process across the board. If you can't do that, then trying to do it hit and miss isn't going to work for you. Very difficult. I believe, and I think that in those circumstances you'd almost be better off ignoring it and focusing on other key variables which can be a lot more important. There are a number of serious punters that tend to not factor in bias as much, or not try to preempt it in terms of their assessments going into a meeting. They'll adjust for it through the course of a meeting if it becomes obvious, but they won't go in thinking, well, I've got this track, this rail configuration, therefore my preconceived assessment is geared around that occurring. Because if it doesn't occur, then you're in trouble. So, Michael, I think that you'd be better off giving it a miss and not trying to just rely on these. Well, it's kind of interesting too that Michael says that he does like having a crack at doing form. So it'd be interesting to see what he does spend his time on. If he's just using these comments. So what's he actually trying to piece it together? How he's piecing it together. So if you want to send that in, I might be able to give you a better idea of how to concentrate your time. Better to get a more consistent result out of it. So it's if you wanted an email in your process, that'd probably help. Without answer it. We're not. I don't want to steal any of your secrets or anything like that. But
give us an idea in terms of how you're managing your time, so that we can maybe guide you in terms of how you can do that better or more effectively, more efficiently.
You might slot in actually doing some track bias work or what else is there? Speed maps, things like that, instead of something that might be of less help or less advantage in the long run.
Okay, the second part of Michael's question is for John. As a Racing Watch subscriber, I'm wondering whether it would be possible for you to briefly summarise any clear prevailing track bias and other impacts that occurred on the country or provincial meetings that you have covered in your weekly summary. Only significant factors, not wanting to increase your workload at all. you guys are already doing an amazing job for us novice punters. Keep up the great work, guys. Michael.
Yeah, I tend to talk about it a lot, but it's sort of not on purpose. So it's not as if it's not that difficult for me to do, as you say. So I do like a weekly roundup thing of selections and things like that, which normally cover most meetings I cover. So yeah, I'll try to keep it in mind, and if I can steer anyone into, without going too deeply into it every time, I'll probably just mention it. That's not a problem.
The point that you made before, though, of course, is that you can have all this information. You can make comment, I can make comment, other people who may be informed can make comment.
Yeah.
The problem is if you're not watching the tapes and you don't know where that horse was.
Well, that's right. The bias is only one part of the puzzle,
Yeah, exactly,
and then who was affected, how, obviously other factors go into how much they were affected in that race, speed of the race, different things. So distance of the race.
Was it a pace bias? Was it a lane bias?
So it's a bit
who
of
was affected, who wasn't.
It's a bit more involved than knowing where the bias is anyway. But I'm happy to sort of provide those little bits if I can.
Okay. Thanks very much, Michael. Okay, the next bunch of questions is from Matt. Now, Matt previously wrote in and we answered those questions, and he starts off by saying, "I've watched the show and another great effort. Thanks for taking the time to respond to my questions. Off to research those books you mentioned to see if I can track a couple down. If I was to simplify my question, it might help you answer. Every week, a punter wakes up on a Saturday morning and their expectation, or more be their precise hope, is that they'll have a winning day. I want to try to get a better guide as to what those stats might be from someone who has a large database, even if it's just considering Saturdays. How often is the outcome a fill-up? A. B. No, not much damage done. Or C. A strip-out. Look, a fill-up, not often. For me, I find that most of my results I'd probably have...
You would say that A and C are the two least likely options, and there's other options you need to fit in there. It's not going to be an A, B and C.
I don't think it is, and I don't even know if this is the right way to be thinking about it, Matt.
Yeah, just if you just say, statistically, over time, there's say you're having 10 or 20 bets, you're probably not having... You're not going to back 80% of winners, and you're not going to back 0% of winners very often. So...
I would say that, for me, the fill-up occurs infrequently, and there's probably, I'm just plucking numbers here, maybe half a dozen days a year that I really can say added significantly or contributed significantly to my end-of-year profit overall.
Oh, positively what? Yep.
In terms of positive.
Yep.
It's hard to sort of take a view on that. You
never know when it's going to come either. It's completely real. You don't know how the setup's going to be. When you say Saturdays, I'd never say it's Saturdays because it could be any day.
Could be any day.
Everything's. As you said, it's probably a bad frame of mind to get into worrying about that. But usually it's going to be win small, lose small, win small, lose small. You'll have your spike 6 days a year, and you'll have your slightly. You strip out. Yeah, I doubt you strip out. Well, for me, it's. Never. If your strip out's worse than your fill up, you're in a lot of trouble.
That's what we talked about that before. You've got to be able to win more than you lose on a good day.
Correct. So it's a funny way to kind of put things into, but it's most of the time it's if you can be gradually going up on a weekly, monthly basis, and then your spike's what gets you to your next level.
But it's not always weekly or monthly. I mean,
that's what I'm just.
The reality is, Matt, you can go months in a losing run. It all depends on how many bets you're having, what your edge is over the market, what sort of strike rate.
That's for sure.
What's the average strike rate of the horses that you're focusing on? That's obviously going to have an effect on your drawdown and your ability to psychologically manage that process.
That's what this kind of sounds like to me. Knowing what you to prepare for psychologically, which is cool. I don't mind that. That you're going in trying to work out, whether you should be expecting a strip out once every 4 weeks or something.
No, you can't.
But that's what I mean. That's what it kind of he's trying to feel out how he should be mentally approaching the day, which is fine. You're just trying to it's like a game of golf. The next shot. Worry about the next shot. Worry about whatever it is. Tennis, the next point.
Just approach it consistently. It's like tossing a coin. We all know that the probability of heads or tails is 0.5 each of 2. You can't say, well, I've thrown 10 heads, so
it's going to be tails.
Expectation is now that there's going to be a strip out if I go tails again.
Yes.
You can't look at it that way. It's just statistical variance that dictates it.
Yeah, and results are irrelevant at the end of the day because you can't control them. All you can control is the process.
Yep.
And sticking to the process, and that's it.
And if it is Saturdays, we're talking 52 Saturdays a year. So let's say it's too small a sample to even consider any meaningful data from.
Yeah.
you know, in that size. So
yeah, even if over 10
we've
years,
talked about drawdown before. We've talked about expectations in terms of drawdown. I would suggest that if you set your bank up properly and you're financing your bets correctly, then you can expect at some point in a very sustained drawdown period or a bad period that you may draw down around 50% or even 60% of your betting capital, depending on how you're staking. I would be prepared for that to happen. That can happen at the start. It could happen after you've doubled or trebled your bank. It could happen any time. So drawdown just simply means that you're below your previous bank high, and we've talked about that. I think in the last show we mentioned that, you know, it's around 80-90% of the time that you can expect to be in that phase that your bank is below what it previously has been.
Kind of just read down into his question more.
Yeah.
And he's basically saying that because he just buys information from people like Durant, as he's saying, and other people, then he's saying, like, so I think it's important to manage my expectations, especially when using tools someone else has provided, not having the in-depth knowledge myself to do the form.
Well, if you price here and you say you're happy you're working around the $3 to $5 mark, let's take the midpoint $4. If it's a true $4 chance, then it's got a 25% chance of winning. So you can really, if you can go into each bet thinking to yourself, 3 out of 4 I'm going to lose.
Yes. That's it, and that's all you can do.
And if you go into it and you view it like that, then your expectations...
As soon as you get away from the fact that not every horse is going to win, doesn't matter how good a thing it is, exactly, it's just as soon as you can realise that one horse can lose, doesn't matter how good a thing it is, it kind of gets your head around that anything can get beaten, you kind of approach it that way. So you're more positive all the time and just trying to keep it on an even keel. And
that's the problem too, Matt, is that a lot of people go into thinking about that $4 chance and thinking, well, I've got a pretty good hope here.
Yeah. When
the reality is 75% of the time you're going to get beat.
Yes, yeah. So you've got to stay positive. You don't want to get drawn down and go, oh, I'm going to back 3 out of 4 losers. That's a bit depressing, you know what I mean? But it's at the end of the day, it's pretty factual. It is.
You've got to be able to manage that, and so perhaps that's a way of looking at it. Even if you're backing an even money pot, you know, roughly half are going to lose. So, and just because half are going to lose, it's like the heads and tails.
Yeah, you can have 10 in a row win or 10 in a row lose, or 20 in a row. It doesn't make a difference.
And it still doesn't get away from the fact that that's the real probability.
Yes.
And that the variance is going to kick in, and you've got no control over it. And as John says correctly, you've got to manage the process and just approach things consistently. And
especially when you're trying to match up other people's information, they could all. It's quite possible they could all have a bad run at the same time. You know,
if you're using multiple sources.
Yeah, that's it. And like, even if I see, like, he's got Gator mentioned here, I think he more covers Melbourne. He might do Sydney as well.
Who is
this? Grabbing Gator's newsletter. So I think does he do Sydney as well? I don't know. That David Gately. So and sure. Mark does Sydney, obviously. So, you know, for whatever reason, they might overlap on a meeting.
Yep.
There's an unpredictable meeting. They could easily both lose, you know. So
horses.
Yeah, or very similar, and looking for similar patterns or whatever, and they don't marry up, and they all go down, or they could all go. So it can happen the other way as well. It's I'd be just the way you do it. I'd be monitoring the information and how you do with each set of information, and trying to worry about that more than
how are you going to approach your bets? What's your process of identifying betting opportunities using the information
and the results? Yes,
and what the results tell you over time, and indicatively within the SP there's a pretty good guide towards, especially at the shorter end of the market, a pretty good guide towards the actual chances of the horse.
So emotionally get lost in the process, not the results.
Yes, don't think about the results. It's tough. I mean, obviously, if you're in a losing period and a drawdown, then it is a very difficult thing to do. Look, I'm going to dig up an article, Matt, that I wrote a while ago on system betting, and it's more about the journey, and it relates to a system, or actually a winning system, or a number of winning systems that I think have been advertised through the media and various outlets over the last year or two. And what I've done is I've just created a system within Axis that's actually a profitable system over the long term, over a sustained number of bets. But it goes through the journey in the cycle of actually how you get from point A to point B, and it's the devil in the detail, that the meat in the middle that breaks most people.
Yes,
it's the experience, it's the journey. So it's not it's very easy to visualise the end result and say, well, that's great, I can do that.
Yeah.
But you've got to be able to live the experience, and living the experience is what we do all the time as punters. It's week in, week out, day
absolutely.
in,
Every little change you make and a new set of experience, it's another experience. If you change your process at all, you basically it's all, you don't know what's going to happen, how it's going to unfold, and it is like a little a little journey.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll do that, Matt. If you maybe want to remind me and just flick me an email, and I'll dig that up and perhaps even post something or send it out on Punters Academy and
Sounds good.
Copy John and myself in, and yeah. I don't know what led me to doing it, but I remember I had some pretty good feedback at the time, so I'll have a crack at finding that for you. The next bunch of questions is from Richard. Hi Paul, I'm hoping that you can share some thoughts for a budding punters club who are keen fans of yourself and John. We're hoping to get some staking advice from you. We bet off ratings, some of which we do ourselves, some that we buy. We used to purchase ratings for Sydney Metro and ours for Queensland and New South Wales to find best using some rules that we've developed over time. Our current rules have to be rated at $3.20 or below, with nothing less than a $4.50 rating. Avoid horses coming off maiden wins that are top raters. First up horses are only bet with caution. No betting at Hawkesbury, Gold Coast, Queanbeyan, Kilcoy or anywhere in Victoria. Avoid poor jockeys and badly mapped horses.
This is
on
A King who's done this
tracks.
for sure. He just anything he doesn't want to talk about Victoria. He says it doesn't exist. Anyway, keep going on. No, this is it. Yeah. Avoid poor jockeys.
Now, well, let's just talk about these first, and we'll break it down and get on to the rest of it. Look, Richard, I think it's great that you're having a crack and trying to rate horses yourself. Obviously, only you know what the process is that you go about to do that. I can tell you, to create a rating and to maintain a rating, it is an enormous and arduous task, and it takes a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of resources to do it efficiently, accurately and well over time.
I would never attempt it.
Look, it's something that I've always been passionate about, and John, you know, I wouldn't necessarily do things exactly.
Yeah, that's right. No, exactly. I wouldn't have the diligence. Like, I just know that I would get, you know, I wouldn't do it to the T all the time. You know what I mean? Like, developing, it's different, you know, but it's not something that appeals to me, but it appeals to some people.
It appeals to my mindset.
Yes, that's right.
And I enjoy doing it, and I think it's great that you're having a crack at it.
Yes.
As far as the other ratings you got, I don't know what they are or how good they are. I wouldn't go into anything with a fixed rule that says I won't back anything unless it's rated $3.20 or below. So, you know, if the horse is rated $3.40, you don't back it.
It has to be rated $3.20 with nothing less than $4.50.
Yeah. So, but I mean, in any case, I wouldn't have any hard and fast rules about.
But hang on, how does that work? Has to be rated $3.20 or below. So it has to be.
Yeah, it has to be.
With nothing less than $4.50 rating. How does that work?
Don't know.
Okay.
Don't know. So,
I'm
Richard,
confused.
you might be able to.
So, assuming, I'm just going to cross that out.
Assuming that the second part's not relevant.
They're all under 9 to 4. Does that mean that is that $4.50 the price that they take or something?
No, or is with nothing less than approximately a $4.50 rating. Maybe $4.50 is the minimum price they'll take.
Yeah, because if it's higher than that, they're worried that there's something wrong.
Don't know.
Okay, anyway.
But I wouldn't go into any hard and fast rules. You've got avoid horses coming off maiden wins that are top raters. If your ratings are well constructed, then you don't need to be concerned about that.
Well, that's where your edge should be, trying to work out the wheat from the chaff.
A great example was on Wednesday. A horse that absolutely stood out on my ratings, Tavistock Abbey in Melbourne, came off a Bendigo, I think it was a Bendigo maiden win, went straight to town.
Straight to an Oaks trial or whatever it was, or Derby trial.
And you know, obviously they went along pretty slow in that race, but it did a good job, and you know, it showed strong sectionals capabilities and got the job done. And the market underestimated the horse. They seriously overvalued the favourite, as I expected they would, and the horse that actually just got beaten by Tavistock Abbey, Main Danger or whatever it was.
So, the 40 to 1 shit, was that the thing that ran against it, that beat it its last start? No,
I can't remember. But the thing that ran second to it, main stage. It was clear second pick on my figures, and the market bet good odds it around about 12, 14 to 1 or something. So, look, I would.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. It's hard to pen everything because there's always an exception, or there's always multiple exceptions.
No betting at Hawkesbury, Gold Coast. I think Gold Coast is good.
I assume that they've run their ratings, and for whatever reason, their weakness is in maiden winners. Yeah. Their weakness is on these tracks, or whatever. They don't have any joy betting into these tracks, so their figures don't hold up. So I guess they would have done a lot of testing against their own figures.
So based on the ratings that you're using, you may well find that these rules are suitable. My point of view is that punting isn't about that. You need to have well-executed processes in terms of how you approach your form, your study, your selection process, your staking, etc. The one I would agree with is first-up horses are only bet with caution. I can tell you now, we've spoken about it before, if the horses that are first up firm in the betting, they have a much better record from a betting perspective than the horses that don't firm in the betting that are first up. So you're looking for support.
Yeah, you're getting a lot stronger guide from the market now on those horses than ever before.
And I'm not talking about, $6.50 into $5.50 on the call,
No.
$8 on the fair.
Yeah, that's
Because
right.
it's not there.
No.
The chances are it's not there. Avoid poor jockeys and badly mapped horses on leader bias tracks. Poor jockeys and badly mapped horses. Well,
That's
badly
fine.
mapped horses, yeah. Poor jockeys often can provide an edge.
But
on
I understand
those
a poor jockey on a track that needs to be ridden better. That's probably
So
poor
not
English.
natural leaders.
Well, not even a natural leader. So just a jockey that might just get lost. Just forget that he's got to be positive. I agree with that. There's tracks that need to be ridden well and are irrelevant to the horse. So a good jockey will outride. Yeah, a good jockey will outride a bad jockey on a slower horse. Like it's just. So I get that.
You want to try to avoid poor jockeys, but
Yes.
you shouldn't just take the view that just because a jockey isn't a fashionable jockey, for
They
instance,
can't win.
on a leader
Yeah.
or a horse is going to be right there, that you're potting them because of that and that alone.
Yeah, because as in the market takes that into effect, counter anyway. Correct.
They overcompensate. Okay, the next part is in the last 12 months we've had 358 wins from 1,109 bets for a 32.3% win rate. I think that's the sort of strike rate that I'm targeting, or that and above. So I think you're on the right track there. We beat the SP 76.4% of the time and equals 6.9. Well done. A pot of 6.21%, average price of the win bets $3.75, average price of the losing bets $7.02, which is skewed by a few roughies. Okay, so average prices, I think you really need to be measuring all your
That's
betting
interesting.
results.
So average price winning bets $3.75, average price losing bets $7.02. So obviously what we were talking about above, nothing less than $4.50, that was nothing to do with the price. So they're rating everything you would imagine under $3.20. And their average losing price is $7. So
Well,
it's way outside their rated price.
Yeah, if you're rating something 9 to 4 and you're getting 6 to 1,
Yes.
I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it doesn't happen often.
Or either that, or you'd be winning a lot more than
You'd be winning a lot more than
6%
6% on turnover.
Yes.
So the ratings, the prices that they're coming up with, or the prices you're coming up with in your ratings aren't accurate.
Yes. That's right. They're much more accurate when they're confirmed by the market, which still says they're still not accurate, are they?
They're still not accurate.
Yeah.
So there's an issue there. We normally bet if the price is greater than 10%, around $2, and look for roughly 20% when the rated price is around $3.20. So you're looking for a price premium to the rating. There's nothing wrong with that. Obviously, value is what it's all about. You need it. You can't survive without it, but you can't live off it alone. You need to actually back winners, and you need to back the right types of horses. So,
even that's you'd need to break that.
Just thinking about Richard's question again on the number of bets he's had, his average win price, lose price. If you're rating horses at 6 to 1. You're rating them at 9 to 4 and they're 6 to 1, and you're not making more than 6% pot.
Well, you're losing. That's your average.
That's a loss. So
yeah,
you're basically, the market's offering you a price of 6 to 1 for a horse that you rated 9 to 4. Now that's not impossible, but it's very rare that the closed market price of 6 to 1. If you're measuring it against an assessed price of $3.20, your assessment's wrong.
Well, it is. It clearly is, because you'd be winning otherwise a lot more.
But you can't be that right.
No, not without winning a fortune, not without being the best punter in Australia.
Yeah. In which case, I want to get to know you.
Yes, correct.
12 months ago, we moved from level staking to proportional staking. We currently bet to win our stake plus a profit of 3 units. That is not proportional betting. If you think about it, Richard, proportional betting is when you bet to collect, or your objective is to collect a certain amount in a race, and let's just say, and the recommendation from my point of view and from most professionals out there who adopt that type of approach, is to bet to collect around 4% of your bank. So if you're betting a horse at even money, you're having 2 units on it. If it wins, you get 2 plus your 2. In your case, you're saying, oh no, I have to win 3 units. So
plus your stake, that's right. So to be, if there's any money chance, you'd be outlaying 3% of your bank,
right,
to win 3. Correct.
So a bet of 3% or an outlay of 3%.
Is it 6% collect, not a 3% collect? Yeah, it's not a 3 unit.
A 4% collect. So basically, you're overbetting, and you're going to be in trouble long term. So if you need any more help with what that should look like based on the theoretical bank size,
yeah. So I don't mind. Yeah, like I would definitely be staying away from a percentage of Kelly, because if your bigger overlays are obviously performing worse.
Yes.
So I would definitely be staying away from a Kelly. The way these numbers are.
Well, proportional betting is a form of Kelly. It's a controlled or a hybrid form of Kelly.
Yes.
But essentially, Kelly works. But
it's not taking into effect the market's price. It's only your price, right?
Yes.
Correct.
But you are taking into account the market price and determining bet size.
Okay.
So if the market price is $7 and your probability is $3.20, your bet is very substantial.
Oh, I thought what happened was, say you've got it rated $2, you bet according to your, so you'd have 2% of your bank if you've got it rated $2.
Yeah, but the bigger
even if it's $10.
There's a multiplication factor in there.
Okay, well that's different.
So you're basically saying, well, the market's giving me 6 to 1 to 9 to 4 chance. Not only am I going to back it like a 9 to 4 chance, I'm going to actually significantly increase my bet because I'm getting such a good price from the market.
Okay.
Against what you think, or what Kelly works on the basis of, is a defined probability.
Yeah, so say for argument's sake, you've got it rated $2, so you would have to have 2 units on that horse in theory. Well, and if that horse is $10, you're
launching.
So you're backing it to win 20, to collect 20 units.
Well, it's probably more. I'd have to do the calcs, but
yeah, okay.
It's a very significant bet,
yes.
And a bet that would be absolutely catastrophic if you were to bet that way.
That's how I bet.
At all. Look, a lot of the syndicates will use a percentage of Kelly, but they're doing things differently. They're also taking into account the opinion of the market.
Yeah.
Most of the bigger syndicates, especially ones playing exotics and so forth, factor in the market substantially into their assessments because they can't afford to be too wrong. They can't afford to be.
They have to say outside influence knows more. To a certain degree.
They can't afford to be tens of horses at fives. Unless there's very good reason.
Yes. So
they would take a percentage of the market. What percentage of the market would obviously depend on the race and the circumstances, but it could be, for example, 60-70% of the market is factored into their overall price lines when they're framing markets for the purposes of wagering into exotics.
Just anything that they've missed or anything that could be open to interpretation and guided by the market, they factor in just simply through a percentage of the market.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, they normalise that. They might adjust for things like price bias, in terms of longer priced horses and so forth. There's lots of ways of doing it. There's no one way.
This is why I leave ratings to you.
Yeah, stay away from it.
No, it's a good question. It's bloody open-ended. I thought I'd be getting away from Kelly. Anything that's just from the numbers you've given, anything that's proportional to your value seems to be against your model. Because it's your best results are closer to your rated price, then the further it gets away, the more you're not winning. So
refusing to bet on particular tracks, like I know some people don't like Hawkesbury, and I must admit it can be.
That's it. It depends on your sample size. Yeah, like a lot of people just plug it in and go, well, for whatever reason, my theories don't work on these tracks. So either they have to develop new theories for those tracks,
or stay away.
Which is. But
you can't just simply say, oh, well, I've got 50 bets or 100 bets or 200 bets at Hawkesbury, so I'm not going to bet.
No, even if you want to pull them out, you've got to keep an eye on them and keep doing those races for mine, even if you're not betting on them.
Because the form still comes and plays a part.
Back when it comes back into the system.
Races.
Yeah.
Kilcoy. Interesting.
I like the look of these tracks.
Yeah. Some of them anywhere in
Hawkesbury's
Victoria.
A funny track at the moment. Yeah, Kilcoy is great, and I agree with Victoria. Just bomb the joint.
Well, there's a lot of racing in Victoria, and anyone sort of trying to specialise is facing a tough task. It's a big workload. Look, there are some guys.
I hate it even like near the border when they're coming up and down and all these sort of areas. It's hard to get a guide on it. Yeah, the tracks are all so different. You get a lot of wet tracks. You get a lot of things. It's just very difficult.
Look, it's a challenge. A lot of people swear by it. I mean, a lot of people actually like doing Victoria.
Big fields is the main reason why they love it. Yeah,
and it's competitive. I mean, if you're betting into Betfair, our good friends there at Betfair, if you're betting into those markets and you're on, say, maximum discount for your wagering, well, you're only paying 2.4.
Yeah, it's much different to 10.
Very, very competitive.
Yeah,
big difference to paying 4% if you're on the maximum discount.
In New South Wales, is it?
Well, you're paying 10.
Yeah,
but if you're on a 60% discount, you're paying 4.
Okay.
And if you're paying...
I'm going to have to hit someone up for that. Yeah, no problem.
Well,
I don't know
yeah,
what I know. I barely use it, but yeah.
We'll have a chat about that.
Yeah.
But look, Richard, there's some really good points here. I think that you probably, the best advice I can give you is to not develop hard and fast rules like you have, save for things like first up horses.
Yeah, you can be you can give penalties, but you still got to be open.
And you've got to understand the ratings that you're getting, and you've got to understand, your interpretation of how you're applying those ratings. I mean, you can mark a horse $3.20. That could be, I've been really hard. Like the person who assessed that horse could have been really hard on that horse and had it at $3.20 and could have had it at $2.50.
My biggest problem with all ratings is if you don't know what's going into it, you know what's going into yours, so you know exactly why you've come up with the answer you've come up with. If you give me that rating and I look at it and go, well, this is Paul's rating, I'd be sitting there going insane, like, did he factor this in? Did he factor that in? How's he come to that number? It's very hard to work with third-party ratings, sure.
Unless you know what goes into it. I mean, ours is pretty clear-cut. Obviously, there's lots of factors, but the thing that we don't take into account is the in-run advantage, disadvantage scenario. Everyone's got a different opinion on what that looks like.
Yes.
You think it lost 2 lengths, I think it lost a length. Joe thinks it lost 4.
Yeah, and if you know what you have to adjust to get a rating that's more tailored to how you do things, it's great. It's great.
But in the absence of those in-run situations, then you can rely on the figures as being an accurate reflection of a horse's quality in terms of, obviously what we've proven to be long-term success and performance in those figures.
Got a bit off the point there, but it's a really hard question to answer
tough
accurately.
Questions. In fact, that's probably one of the most challenging.
Yeah, definitely. Well, because you can talk about if we had Richard here in front of us, I reckon we'd talk for 5 hours, and we'd scratch the surface of how he could improve things, how he does things. It's when you get into the world of ratings, it's very personal, and little changes make big differences at the end. So,
I think on that note, guys, we're going to finish part 1 and be back shortly for part 2.
Too easy.